Hello and welcome to the fourth installment of our Screen Reader Savvy series. This section is going to focus on use of word processing, editing, and navigation within Word documents or other types of documents as well, and cursor placement. So let's go ahead and get started. Now let's talk a little bit about reading and navigating text. When navigating text, character by character, word by word, or really any other way, both JAWS and NVDA will always announce the item that is located physically to the right of the cursor. There's an example here that shows the word apple, and the cursor is physically located to the left of the word apple, and the word apple is located to the right of the cursor. JAWS would say the letter A or the word apple since the location of the cursor is in front of the A. When navigating forward or backward using the arrows, it would continue to say the letters that are located to the right of the physical cursor. It doesn't matter which way you're navigating. It's important to know this concept. It's kind of tricky at times just because of the cursor movement and just how it's performed, but believe me, it's really super important to understand this concept and how it works. So therefore, this might require some practice. It's especially important when you're talking about making edits to a Word document or another type of document. So let's take a look at navigating text versus reading text because there's a difference. When you're navigating text, you're moving the PC cursor as the content is read, and this allows for editing while you're navigating. So it's important to know where that cursor location is, as we talked about previously. When you're reading text, you're only moving the screen reader's cursor to read the text or text that cannot be modified, like on a web page and things like that. So when in a Word document, it's really cool to be able to use your modifier key plus Z for JAWS, and I believe it's modifier key plus space for NVDA, and that toggles browse mode. When using browse mode, it allows you to navigate the larger Word documents as though they were a web page. And we'll talk about navigating web pages a little bit later into this class, but it's kind of a cool thing to know because it allows you to navigate that page or that document without accidentally making edits. So it's great for large documents, and it can allow you, like I said, to browse through them a little easier. Before we start talking about reading and navigating key commands in Windows and the screen readers, I want to talk first just for a second about the importance of practicing. Practice using these commands in various environments, wherever you're located, in a web page, on a document, wherever, because these are going to be super important for efficiency. Yeah, you can move just up and down and use your arrow keys to move to locations. But if you can be efficient, you're going to be a lot faster and more effective with use of your screen reader. So moving into what these commands are, your right and left arrow are going to move character by character. Control plus right and left arrow, so adding the control key, will move word by word. Up and down arrows move line by line, and control up or control down will move paragraph by paragraph. These commands are specific to JAWS, and some of them, by the way, will be the same as NVDA, but there are some slight differences. So I'm just putting them both sets out there and kind of letting you determine which is different based on what your needs are going to be and which screen reader you're going to be using. So again, right and left arrow are moving character by character. Number pad 5 will say the current character. Number pad 5 twice quickly will say the current character phonetically, like Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Gamma, whatever those might be. I'm not completely versed on them. But if you press that number pad 5 3 times quickly, JAWS will say the ASCII value of the character. I've not had a need for that, but that doesn't mean that need does not exist somewhere. Continuing on, Control plus right or left arrow or Insert plus right or left arrow will move word by word. Insert plus number pad 5 will say the current word. And insert plus number pad 5 twice quickly will spell the current word. So here are some more. Up and down arrow will move line by line. Insert plus up arrow will say the current line. Alt plus up or down arrow will move sentence by sentence. And Alt plus the number pad 5 will say the current sentence. Control plus up and down arrow will move paragraph by paragraph. Control plus number pad 5 will say the current paragraph. Insert key plus home will say to the cursor from the start of a line. So from the start of a line to the placement of the current cursor. Insert plus page up will say from the current cursor location to the end of the line, so the opposite. But insert down arrow will just begin to read. Moving on to NVDA, some of these commands again will be the same, but others will be slightly different. Right and left arrow will move character by character. Number pad 5 will say the current character. Number pad 5 twice quickly will say the current character phonetically. And number pad 5 3 times quickly will say the ASCII value of the current character. Moving on, control plus right or left arrow will move word by word. Number pad 5 plus the insert, so insert number pad 5 will say the current word. Insert plus number pad 5 twice quickly will spell the current word. Up and down arrow will move line by line, and insert plus up arrow will say the current line. And this is the final slide. Control plus up and down arrow will move paragraph by paragraph. Control plus number pad 5 will say the current paragraph. Insert plus the home key will say to the current cursor location. Insert page up will say from the current cursor location. And insert plus down arrow will say all. We'll just read everything. Just a word about tables. Contrary to what we might hear sometimes, tables are generally accessible to those who are using screen readers, but they're not always super user-friendly. Each screen reader has its own navigation commands, although some do intersect between JAWS and NVDA. The tables that we tend to have a little more difficulty with are what are called non-uniform tables, and these tables have don't have, I guess, the same number of columns as rows, and they also might contain merged cells or split cells and things like that. They also might not be coded to work well with a screen reader, which means that the header rows may not have been labeled as header rows, and that can sometimes be a little challenging. Navigating tables that are uniform really isn't all that hard. Creating tables with a screen reader can be a little more challenging, but it is possible, especially with practice, if you do it a lot. And that's another thing that is worth mentioning. Definitely practice, practice, practice. So JAWS and NVDA have the following commands in common. Pressing Alt and Control plus the right arrow will move one cell to the right. Alt and Control plus left arrow will move one cell to the left. Alt Control plus down arrow will move to the cell below, while Alt Control plus up arrow will move to the cell above. The following commands only apply to JAWS, and I feel like I need to say here that there are some commands that are slightly different. You can do this differently depending on your preference, but these are the commands that I've been using and that I usually teach. Alt Control Home will move to the first cell in a table, where Alt Control N will move to the last cell. Alt Control plus Shift plus up arrow will move to the first cell in a column. And Alt Control Shift plus down arrow will move to the last cell in a column. Alt Control Shift left arrow will move to the first cell in a row, while Alt Control Shift right arrow will move to the last cell in a row. These commands apply only to NVDA. Alt Control Home moves to the first column, Alt-Control-End moves to the last column. Alt-Control page up moves to the first row, and Alt-Control page down moves to the last row. These table reading commands only apply to JAWS. Alt-Control plus number pad says the current cell. So not only the contents, exactly where in the table you are located. That's important to know. Insert plus Shift plus up arrow will read the current row. Insert plus Shift plus Home will read from the start of the row. Insert plus Shift plus Page Up will read to the end of the row. Insert plus Shift plus number pad 5 will read the current column. Insert plus Shift plus End will read from the start of the column, and Insert plus Shift plus Page Down will read to the end of the column. Finally, these commands only apply to NVDA. Insert plus Control plus Alt plus down arrow will say All in a column from the current position. Insert Control, Alt, and right arrow will say All in a row from the current position. Insert plus Control plus Alt and up arrow will read the entire column from the start of the column. And Insert plus Control plus Alt plus left arrow will read the entire row from the start of the row. Remember, it's very important to practice these commands. They don't all come naturally, and they don't all come as easily as one might like, but practice makes progress. This is just a reminder on where's my cursor. Knowing the location of your cursor is especially important when editing text, and that's what we're going to talk about next. As we've said before, practice makes progress. It's going to take practice editing without looking at the screen, if you can see. So be patient with yourself and be patient with your students. It will happen. It may take some time. Editing text, backspace versus the delete key. This is a very important concept, and you will want to use either the backspace or the delete key to do different tasks depending on what you're up to, and it's important to know what the difference is between these keys. The backspace erases the character that is located to the left of the cursor, so it literally spaces backwards. The screen reader will announce the item that was erased, thankfully, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a hint as to what is happening on the screen. Now, delete is a little different because it erases the character that's located to the right of, or in some cases people think of as in front of, the cursor. When erasing one character at a time, JAWS and NVDA will announce the character that is now to the right of the cursor, not the character or letter that was erased. This is a really important difference. When erasing larger chunks, and we're going to talk about that in the next slides, NVDA does not report what's erased or the next thing in the string. Therefore, until the user really becomes used to erasing in this way, it might be wise to double check to make sure that the text reflects the intended changes. And that's just a basic general recommendation. Always double check. This is just a note on spell checking. The following slides are going to give steps on how to use the Microsoft Editor function, which is what we used to call the spell check in Microsoft Word in the installed desktop application. Similar steps can be used for other installed Microsoft applications, so you can follow these same directions most of the time. But steps for spell checking using screen readers for Google or web versions of the Microsoft applications and other tools, you might be better off looking for those online. These ones that we're going to talk about for the installed applications specifically refer to those rather than anything that's web-based. So let's talk about spell check in the Microsoft Editor. The Microsoft Editor is what, again, we used to call the spell check. And they call it the editor because they give you a whole lot more options now. and it's not just editing grammar, it's editing for conciseness, it's editing for word choice, all of those things. So that's why they call it the Microsoft Editor. It's not just for spell check anymore. So both JAWS and NVDA can be used to check spelling in this Microsoft Editor using the same commands because these are primarily Windows commands. First thing you need to do is make sure that the focus is at the top of the document. Press F7 to open the editor, and the screen reader will now be focused in the editor pane. Use the tab to navigate among the buttons until spelling is in focus, and press Enter. If the screen reader moves from the editor pane, which it sometimes can, press F6 to navigate back to that area of the screen again. The editor pane is typically located on the right side of your screen. Now focus is on the first misspelled word. The misspelled word is going to be read character by character. Use down arrow to navigate to the suggestion list. Once the screen reader is focused in the suggestion list, use your up and down arrows to choose the word that should replace the misspelled word. It should be pretty obvious. To spell the word in focus, it's going to differ a little bit depending on your screen reader. Use insert plus numpad 5 twice quickly if using JAWS, but you can just use number pad 5 twice quickly if you're using NVDA. Select the appropriate word using the Enter key, and it will be inserted in the document. The following key commands work in the spell check pane in Word. Alt-I will ignore the word once. So if you have a spelling that you know you don't want to be corrected, you can do an Alt-I to ignore the word. Alt-G will ignore all instances of the misspelling in that document. So every time that comes up, it'll ignore it. Alt-A will add the misspelling to the dictionary, which is kind of a nice sort of help because then not only will it not tell you in that document that it's misspelled, it will add it to the dictionary so that happens in other documents moving forward. Alt plus C will change the misspelling of the suggestion in focus. So it'll take that suggestion that's in focus that your screen reader just told you, that pressing that Alt C will insert that in place of the misspelled word. Alt L will change all instances of the misspelling to the suggestion in focus. So if you have misspelled one word multiple times incorrectly in the same document and you know it, you can press Alt-L to change all of those to the suggested change that's currently in focus. With JAWS, there is one method that can be used only with JAWS. It's sort of a simplified method, and it may be helpful to use that with a student. If you press Alt plus Shift plus L, you'll open the Spelling Errors List dialog box. Navigate that dialog box with your up and down arrows, and once the cursor is focused on a word that needs correction, press Enter. JAWS will announce the misspelled word and say it letter by letter. The focus of the cursor will be at the beginning of the word. From here, open the context menu, either with a Shift plus F10 or with the application key on your keyboard, or you can use a simulated click in your number pad by pressing the star key. And now use your up and down arrow keys to navigate the choices. To hear them spelled, use JAWS key or insert plus number pad twice quickly. Press Enter when the correct option is in focus that you want to use, or choose Ignore All or Add to Dictionary if those choices apply. Spell checking with NVDA, this is another way that just is specific to NVDA. Turn on browse mode, which is the NVDA key plus the spacebar, and you should hear it either say something about browse mode or it will make a sound indicating it. If you type the letter W to navigate to the next misspelled word, focus will be brought there. Use your reading commands to determine the context if needed. So you might want to know what words are to the left or right of the word that NVDA is telling you is misspelled. Return focus to the misspelled word, and then press the application menu key or Shift F10, or simulate a right click on the number pad. And this will open the context menu. Use arrows to read the spelling suggestions, and then press NVDA plus tab twice to hear the suggestion in focus spelled letter by letter. That's always a good idea. To select that word to replace the misspelling, press Enter. To continue editing the document, turn Browse mode back off. And that pretty much is it for this portion. I know there's a lot in here in such a short period of time, but as has been repeated multiple times, definitely practice. Practice makes progress. Practice will help to iron out the kinks, and you'll be able to straighten it out in your own head. Don't expect perfection right away, and definitely give yourself some time. I hope this has been helpful. Have a great day.